Before we get to the last two lessons in this course, which are learning to lay and read a basic 3-card spread and learning to lay and read the classic Celtic cross spread, I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about how to handle and shuffle your cards. We're not going to cover things like how to choose tarot deck or how to charge or clear your deck in this course, because remember, our goal for Learn to Read Tarot in a Weekend is to get you reading as soon as possible. But if you're interested in learning more about things like choosing a tarot card deck or charging and clearing it, head on over to wayfindertarot.com or just Google those phrases. Just as there are different methods to read tarot, there are different schools of thought on how to handle the cards themselves. I'm going to share a few of them here, including my personal preferences. So, years ago, another reader told me that when not in use, your cards should be wrapped in a natural fabric, like cotton or silk, and stored in a wooden box. And I followed that advice to the letter for a number of years, and still sometimes stash my everyday deck in a small wooden box. But to be honest, my cards just usually hang out on my desk next to my coffee mug, usually under a rock or a crystal or two. I refer to my cards multiple times during the day, so I like to have them close at hand. Now, a common addiction among tarot card readers is that we can't pass up a pretty deck. I've collected many decks over the years, and I do keep some of my favorites in a large wooden box. I also stash some of my little talismans in there. Feathers, rocks, some vintage Mardi Gras coins from the 70s. And there are times when I'll spread a tablecloth, light a candle, and lay some of my charms before laying my spread. Other times, I just take a quick minute to center and clear my mind, do a quick shuffle, then pull a card or several cards. Again, you should do whatever rituals resonate with you. There are two things I recommend you consider always doing before you lay your spread. The first one is to get centered and incant something. Whether that incantation is something as simple as, I bring an open heart and mind to this reading, or a long and involved incantation. As long as you put yourself in the right headspace to read, say whatever you want to say. The second thing I recommend is to clear your deck by knocking it on the table 3 times. This is an old school ritual that I don't even remember learning, but I've always done it. And most readers I know do it too. Every reading should be complete and unique. So I think of this knock 3 times thing as kind of knocking off the dust and magic from the previous reading and preparing for the next. Okay, now let's look at a few ways to shuffle and cut your cards. The first one is the overhand shuffle, sometimes known as the witch's shuffle, and it looks like this. This is the one I use almost exclusively. It just feels right to me. We'll look at a couple more shuffling styles in just a minute, but let's move on to the cut, which to my mind is just as important as, if not more important than, the shuffle itself. Once you get your cards shuffled, you're going to cut them. The cut is always done with the left hand. You cut your cards into 3 piles. Now, what happens next is entirely up to you. You can either reassemble the deck by placing whichever pile you choose atop the others, again, using your left hand. Or you can draw directly from the 3 piles. It's entirely up to you. I almost always reassemble my deck before laying a spread. However, with a 3-card spread, which we'll be learning about in the next lesson, I do occasionally pull from the 3 piles. Okay, the next method of shuffling is the riffle, and this will look very familiar to you if you play standard card games. But notice that rather than bridging the 2 halves like you sometimes do when you shuffle playing cards, I nudge them back together side by side. I do this intentionally to eliminate reversals. So when I start my shuffles, I start with all of my cards facing the same way. And if I were to reassemble a riffled deck by pushing them together head to head, like you do with playing cards, about half of the cards would be reversed. The final method I'm going to show you is the wash shuffle. I've also heard this method called swooshing or smooshing. A lot of readers use this technique, especially if they allow the querent to do the shuffling. There's a school of thought that this method is better at imparting the reader's or the querent's energy into the cards. It's just never resonated with me, so I don't do it. But that shouldn't stop you. If you want to smush, swoosh, or wash the cards, then that's absolutely what you should do. So once you've got the cards shuffled and it comes to laying the cards, I like to hold the shuffled cards in my left hand and deal them with my right. Some readers fan the cards, then pass their right hand over the fan to kind of feel which card they should pull from the fan, or they ask the querent to do so. So there are a few methods for shuffling, cutting, and dealing your cards. And there are many others out there. Experiment and see which one feels right for you. Okay, now let's do some reading. On to our last two lessons, reading the 3-card spread and reading the Celtic Cross spread.